Big business.
RSK, let it play, boy.
Yeah.
When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, nothing miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's
the music, the clip is messing up on me. Hey, but shalom to everybody. Shalom. The music, the clip is messing up on me. Hey, but shalom to everybody. Shalom. I see what it was. I had the YouTube link open. Hey, shalom to everybody, man. We back again. Haplogroup J with our brother Ivry of Israel. We're going to let the rest of that song play out, and then we're going to let him rock and give the presentation.
big business, nothing miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. I wake up and say me a prayer. Brush my teeth, babe, then I throw on some threads. Wash my face, grab a cup, pour me some yum. Put on my backpack, then I'm off to the bed. I eat these devils for breakfast. Gotta be careful. Whole lot of blood being shed in the streets. World is so wicked, I weep for the living. I drop a free cheer for the dead. All my white friends in my pocket, or either they loading onto this black card that I swipe. Say every time that I drop it, the verses be hitting more harder than problems of life. Rich, I collected 2 pennies from every person that willingly gave me advice. Being afraid can't exist in my spirit. I'm fearing no man but the Father in Christ. I put in work with the brothers. We stood on them corners from 10 to like 9 the same night, teaching our people the gospel, equipped with a camera, some posters of speakers and mic. Every time that I see mama, she telling me, son, you gotta walk in the light. Christ, the bread of heaven, keep feeding my spirit, and I want a low, not a slide. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, nothing miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, nothing miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers.
When I tell you I'm an Israelite, tribe of Judah, don't you take it personal. Bleed the blood on these demons, we purging them. Don't entertain Jezebels, we be curving them. Ayy, I got a ribbon, she virtuous. In person, this blue life ain't virtual. I can't forget when I heard the truth. I got cut with that word, it got surgical. Conviction can lead to repentance. I pray these verses encourage you. We repented, now we on the vertical. Judah rising, see Isaiah 32. Big business, nothing minuscule. I picked up that pen back in middle school. Guard your light and take heed who you listen to. Watch your mouth and your ears and your vision too. Hashatan and Shalkani won't finish you. In Mortal Kombat, this war is not physical. Gird your loins up and follow the general. Messiah is coming, that's scriptural. You gotta starve your flesh. The real war ain't even started yet. This look like a setup for a second exit. I'm trying to be where the water at. Let's get it.
When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, nothing miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, nothing miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. We back with that fire. I'm back with the savant from the Levant, Ivry of Israel. My brother be going in and putting in that heat rock, Haplogroup J, part 2. So with no further ado, I'm going to let my brother do what he does, man. Shalom, Ivry. Talk to the people.
All right, shalom, everyone. Sorry I was gone for about 2 weeks, but I was
getting all those presentations in order. Still working on the bonus content, which is almost done. But for this week, I'm going to try to knock out these Haplogroup J videos and bonus content within the next 2 weeks. So tomorrow, there will be another video, perhaps in the daytime and perhaps at night. And I'm going to see when I can get done with these videos so I can move to the next segment of content. But let's begin with part 2 of Haplogroup J. And hopefully y'all remember from last time's video. Y'all can always just go back. I guess I'll give a quick summary. So last time we talked about Haplogroup J originating in the Georgia region of the Caucasus. The oldest human population to have Haplogroup J are the Caucasus hunter-gatherers. Caucasus hunter-gatherers mixed with Eastern European hunter-gatherers has created the Yamnaya culture. The Yamnaya culture are Proto-Indo-Europeans, and they spread throughout Eurasia, going as far west into Europe as the British Isles, to as far east into far east of Asia as India. And so what's interesting about these Yamnaya people, again, is that half of their DNA is from the Caucasus hunter-gatherers, who of course had Haplogroup J. And we know that from light skin comes from these Caucasus hunter-gatherers, the light skin mutation. They're some of the first people to have it. They mix with the Eastern European hunter-gatherers, and that's why they have it. And then, of course, they spread it and spread throughout all of Eurasia. This is why a lot of Eurasian peoples are light-skinned from this Proto-Indo-European migration. And so that's basically the gist of last week's video. Just basically seeing how J could be associated with the spread of Proto-Indo-Europeans. Of course, J wouldn't be the only haplogroup to spread with Proto-Indo-Europeans. R would have been heavy among them as well as haplogroup L and G and various others. But we can't leave out J. J would have contributed to the Proto-Indo-European migration and Proto-Indo-European people. And so this makes us wonder, could J be who could J be biblically? And so right now, today's video, we're going to look, and that's, by the way, everything I just said was last week. Well, not last week, but the last 2 weeks video that I did, the latest video I did. Check that out for the full breakdown where I have charts, I show samples, I go deep into the Caucasus hunter-gatherers, the Yamnaya, perhaps a little too deep, but I want people to be very clear on these ethnic groups, because we often don't read or hear about these ethnic groups, of course, in like history class or even on various, Hebrew Israelite channels. We need to know about these ancient groups, who started these languages like Proto-Indo-European, who is part of these ancient migrations throughout the world. So it's basically what I'm trying to do. But so let's begin with part 2 of this video. Yeshua, can you pull up my screen? I think I'm ready. All right. So last time, as I said, we talked about the migration of Proto-Indo-Europeans, the Yamnaya, from the Ukraine or the northern Caucasus. Now, there's actually 2 other Proto-Indo-European homelands that we're going to discuss tonight. I believe you should know about all the different homelands when it comes to various languages. We did this for Afroasiatic. Afroasiatic has origins in the Horn of Africa, Yemen, Arabia, the Eastern Sahara, North Africa, Levant. We're going to do the same thing with Proto-Indo-Europeans. So although we talked about, again, them spreading from the Ukraine or the Northern Caucasus, there are 2 other theories for the homeland of Proto-Indo-Europeans. And one of these I actually subscribe to the most than the other 2. So we have the Anatolian and the Armenian hypothesis. So let's begin. There are 2 more hypotheses for the origins of Proto-Indo-Europeans, the Anatolian and the Armenian hypothesis. Let's briefly cover these 2. So first we'll go into the Anatolian hypothesis. So the Anatolian hypothesis suggests that speakers of the Proto-Indo-European, also known as PIE, lived in Anatolia during the Neolithic era, and it associates the distribution of historical Indo-European languages with the expansion during the Neolithic Revolution of the 7th and 6th millennium BC. And here's basically like a map showing them coming through Anatolia into Europe, and also even going through the Caucasus into Europe. So the Anatolian hypothesis proposed by archaeologist Conley Renfrew places the pre-Proto-Indo-European homeland in Anatolia around 8000 BC, and the homeland of Proto-Indo-European proper in the Balkans around 5000 BC, with waves of linguistic expansion following the progression of agriculture in Europe. So according to Renfrew, 2004, the spread of Indo-European proceeded in the following steps. Around 6500 BC, pre-Proto-Indo-European located in Anatolia splits into Anatolian and Archaic Proto-Indo-European, the language of those Proto-Indo-European farmers who migrated to Europe, and the initial farming dispersal. Now, around 5000 BC, Archaic Proto-Indo-European splits into Northwestern Indo-European, the ancestor of Italic, Celtic, and Germanic, located in the Dubend Valley, Balkan Proto-Indo-European, corresponding to the Gemstas, Old European culture, and pre-steppe Proto-Indo-European, the ancestor of Chonstrian. So here's, again, basically a map of the Anatolian hypothesis coming out of the northern Near East, spreading from Anatolia into Europe and into the Caucasus and into Europe. So Proto-Indo-European homeland, the Armenian hypothesis. The Anatolian hypothesis is pretty simple. So now let's look at the Armenian. So the Armenian hypothesis of the Proto-Indo-European homeland proposed by Georgian Tamaz V. Gemisters and Russian linguist Vyacheslav Ivanov in the early 1980s suggests that Proto-Indo-European was spoken during the 5th through 4th millennium BC in the Eastern Anatolian, the Southern Caucasus, and Northern Mesopotamia. The Armenian hypothesis of the Proto-Indo-European homeland suggests that Proto-Indo-European was spoken during the 5th through 4th millennium BC in the Eastern Anatolia, the Southern Caucasus, and Northern Mesopotamia. Recent DNA research has led to renewed suggestions of a Caucasian homeland for a pre-Proto-Indo-European. It also leads support to the Indo-Hittite hypothesis, according to which both Proto-Anatolian and Proto-Indo-European split off from a common mother language no later than the 4th millennium BC. Ginrich Zill and Ivanov presented their hypothesis in Russian in 1980 through 1981. In two articles, the Vestnik-driven Istory, during the following years, they expanded the development. During the following years, they expanded and developed their work into their voluminous book, published in Russian in 1984. The English translation of the book appeared in 1995. In English, a short stretch of the hypothesis first appeared in the Early History of Indo-European Languages, published in Science American in 1990. Tamas Grin-Prelizd published an update to the hypothesis in 2010. According to Ram-Relizdiz and Ivanov, the Indo-European languages derive from a language originally spoken in the wide area of Armenian highlands, the South Caucasus, and Northern Mesopotamia. The Anatolian languages, including Hittite, split off before 4000 BC and migrated into Anatolia around 2000 BC. Around 4000 BC, the Proto-Indo-European community split into Greek, Armenian, Indo-Aryans, Celto-Alto-Trenchans, and Balto-Slavo-Germanics. At around 3000 through 25,000 BC, Greek moved to the west, while the Indo-Aryans and the Celto-Atali-Trenchans and the Balto-Slavo-Germanics moved east and then northwards along the eastern slope of the Caspian Sea. The Trenchans split into Italio-Celtics before 2000 BC and moved further east, while the Italio-Celtics and Balto-Slavic Germanics turned westward towards the northern slopes of the Black Sea. From there, they expanded further into Europe between around 2000 and 1000 BCE. Don't worry, I'm going to actually show you a representation, a visual representation of this migration in a minute. So, recent DNA research through 2015 through 2018 has led to renewed suggestions of a Caucasian homeland for the Proto-Indo-European. It also has been proposed by some to lend support to the Indo-Hittite hypothesis, according to which both Proto-Anatolian and Proto-Indo-European split off from a mother language no later than the 4th millennium BCE. Hack at 2015 study states that the Armenian Plateau hypothesis gains in plausibility, since the Yamnaya partly descended from a Near Eastern population which resembles modern-day Armenians. Yet they also state the question of what languages were spoken by the Eastern European hunter-gatherers, and that the Southern Armenian-like ancestral population remains open. David Reach, in his 2018 published Who Are We and Where We Got Here, noting the presence of some Indo-European languages such as Hittite and parts of ancient Anatolia, suggests that the most likely location of the population that first spoke an Indo-European language was south of the Caucasus Mountains, perhaps in present-day Iran or Armenia, because ancient DNA from people who lived there matches what we could expect for a source population, both for the Yamnaya and for ancient Anatolians. And you'll see why all this is important when we get deeper into the presentation. Keep these words in mind where Proto-Indo-European could have originated in. Southern Caucasus, Iran, Armenia. Keep these words in mind. So, Wang et's 2018 study note that the Caucasus served as a corridor for gene flow between the steppe and cultures south of the Caucasus during the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, stating that this opens up the possibility of a homeland of Proto-Indo-European south of the Caucasus. Christine Christasian, in the interview with Der Spiegel in May 2018, stated that the Yamnaya culture may have been the predecessor of the Caucasus, where Proto-Indo-European was spoken. So, Anatolia and Armenian hypothesis. What's interesting about the Anatolian and the Armenian hypothesis is that if Proto-Indo-Europeans did originate in Anatolia or Armenia, both of these locations are the birthplace for ancient haplogroup J males, and it's still even in these populations to this day. Remember, the J1A1B-Z18375 branch has a geographic distribution subsequently overlapping with that of the J1B-F4306 and J1A2-PH77 branches. The J1A-B-Z18357 branch was found overwhelmingly among ancient and modern populations such as the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, Iran, and Anatolia. This branch constitutes the aforementioned peak of J1-M267 frequency in the Northeast Caucasus. Haplogroup J1-M267 were found among populations living in the Caucasus and neighboring regions. Again, here's a visual map of where early J1 was situated in the Anatolia plus Europe region. So, therefore, even if we look at other theories for the origins of Proto-Indo-European, we still can see that the Caucasus hunter-gatherers in Haplogroup J would have been among the population that could have very well be Proto-Indo-European speakers in origin. With that being said, what hypothesis is the best out of the Yamnaya, Anatolian, and Armenian? Short answer is the Armenian hypothesis. I personally subscribe to the Armenian hypothesis for the origin of Proto-Indo-European speakers. Now let's see why. The Armenian hypothesis. Let's actually go a little bit deeper into it because I like this for the Proto-Indo-European homeland. So here's a study that goes into it. The Armenian plateau hypothesis gains in plausibility since the Yamnaya partly descended from a Near Eastern population which resembles present-day Armenians. Yet, Hack and his team also state that the question of what languages were spoken by the Eastern European hunter-gatherers in the southern Armenian-like ancestral population remains open. Here's another study. The most likely location of the population that first spoke an Indo-European language was south of the Caucasus Mountains, perhaps in present-day Iran or Armenia, because ancient DNA from people who lived there matches what we would expect for a source population, both for the Yamnaya and the ancient Anatolians. Here again is another study. The insight of the Caucasus Mountains served not only as a corridor for the spread of Caucasus hunter-gatherers / Neolithic Iranian ancestry, but also for later gene flow from the south, also as a barrier on the postulated homelands of Proto-Indo-European languages, and documented gene flow that could have carried a conclusive spread of both across Eurasia. Preserving the Caucasus as an occasional bridge, rather than a strict border during the Neolithic and Bronze Age, opens up the possibility of a homeland of Proto-Indo-European south of the Caucasus, which itself provides a premonitious explanation for an early branching of the Anatolian languages. And here's another study. They further note that this leads support to the Indo-Hittite hypothesis, according to which both Proto-Anatolian and Proto-Indo-European split off from a common mother language no later than the 4th millennium BCE. So the Armenian hypothesis is a great candidate for the origins of Proto-Indo-European. Various linguists are starting to link to this, even the DNA is linking to this. With that being said, it doesn't necessarily disprove the Anatolian or the Yamnaya hypothesis. What would have happened is that when it comes to the Armenian hypothesis, the Proto-Indo-Europeans would have migrated from Armenia, and then some would have went north to the steppes, and others would have went west to Anatolia. So technically speaking, you can still kind of go with the Yamnaya and the Anatolian hypothesis. The only difference is that they're spreading from Armenia going into the Yamnaya region, is spreading from Armenia into the Anatolian region. So you still can kind of go with both. That's why I like the Armenian hypothesis the most. So here's like a visual representation of what I mean. So Proto-Indo-European homeland, south of the Caucasus. Some would have went into the region of the Ukraine, where you have the Yamnaya culture, but also some could have went into Anatolia, where you eventually have, the Greek-speaking peoples. And then some could have also went to Iran, where you have the Iranians. So this is just another example. But don't just listen to me. Take it from Dr. David Reach. He's probably one of the best professors on this, or geneticist, should I say, who's dealing with this. So for 7,000 until 5,000 years ago, we observed a steady influx from the steppe of a population whose ancestors traced their origin to the south as it bore genetic affinities to ancient and present-day people of Armenia and Iran, even crystallizing in the Yamnaya, who were about a 1-to-1 ratio of ancestry from these two sources. A good guess is that the migration proceeded via the Caucasus Isthmus between the Black and Caspian Sea. Ancient DNA available from this time in Anatolia shows no evidence of steppe ancestry similar to that in the Yamnaya. This suggests to me that the most likely location of the population that first spoke an Indo-European language was south of the Caucasus Mountains, perhaps in present-day Armenia or Iran. Because ancient DNA from people who lived there matches what we could expect for a source population, both for the Yamnaya and for the ancient Anatolians. If this scenario is right, the population sent one branch up into the steppe, mixing with steppe hunter-gatherers in a 1-to-1 ratio to become the Yamnaya, as described earlier, and another to Anatolia to found the ancestors of the people there who spoke languages such as Hittite. So again, here is that visual representation. So basically what he said and what I said is that, Proto-Indo-European would have went to Anatolia to become the Hittites. Then another branch would have went into the Ukraine region to become the Yamnaya. And boom, this Armenia hypothesis can support both the Yamnaya and the Anatolian hypothesis for the spread of Proto-Indo-European. So Hittite would technically be one of the oldest Indo-European languages, according to the Proto-Indo-European language tree. I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm hoping y'all can zoom in. You can also just type in Google Proto-Indo-European language tree. But basically you will see that the Anatolian languages would have been one of the first Indo-European languages to have been spoken, and that we, can actually sort of read today. Hittite, of course, is the specific oldest Anatolian language. And again, this is a beautiful tree that actually shows all the languages. It shows Armenian, Greek, Albanian, Indo-Iranian, Balto-Slavic, Germanic, Italic. It shows all the ancient languages, breaking it all the way down to the modern day. It's a very nice tree. And so here's a map as well that shows if Proto-Indo-European spread from the Southern Caucasus. Of course, one of the first places that they would have went to is Anatolia, the Anatolian languages. Not far from there is Iran as well, Indo-Iranian, then spreading out that way. So, and here again, just another visual representation of the Indo-European tree of languages. Hittite and other Anatolian languages, which today are extinct, along with the Chechen language. And this specific one is actually spoken in China. But anyways, it's very close. The closest language, to the Hittite would be the Armenian. It would be one of the oldest, technically oldest-ish Indo-European languages. So what is it? So this is what Hittite looked like, the oldest Indo-European language. So this is sort of like their characters, their language characters of how the language would have looked. It's very, very interesting. This is Hittite, the Hittite language. Just let y'all see that for a quick second. All right, so if you want to know what the oldest Indo-European language Hittite sounded like, here is an example, excellent video that goes into it. So Yashub, if you don't mind, can you type in, all right, so first I was looking at this YouTube channel and I found out that they do have Proto-Indo-European, but also Hittite. So first, Yashub, can you type in Proto-Indo-European I love languages on YouTube? Can you do that for me? I'm gonna zip out of here. I just want the audience to sort of hear what Proto-Indo-European sounded like, as well as Hittite. just so we can go deeper into it, have a really strong sense of what we're dealing with. Oh, can you hear me, by the way? Yashub, can you hear me? People in the chat, can y'all hear me? I'm just want to double check. Can I have like a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me, or am I in the matrix or something? Okay, I see a yes. I see a yes. Okay, give me a quick second here. I'm going to try to do something. Give me a quick second.
What's going on, Ivory? What's happening?
Okay. Okay. What I want you to do is to type in Proto-Indo-European from I Love Languages on YouTube. I just want the audience to sort of hear what Proto-Indo-European sounds like. And then after that, I want them to sort of hear what Hittite sounds like. I just want to bring it more to life, you know, our understanding of the Proto-Indo-Europeans. So on YouTube, just type in Proto-Indo-European I Love Languages, if you don't mind.
I got it.
All right. And you can share your screen. And I want you to just show the first few seconds. I'll tell you when to stop, and then I'll tell you when to go to the sample text.
Language. Numbers. Oinos. Duo. Tres. Quatuores. Penque. Suex. Septem. Octo. Neon. Decimt. Vocabulary. Mehter. Pter. Bretter. Suesor. Dukter. Supnu. Nepot. Daiher. Snusos. Swakru. Dikemon.
All right, you stop right there and skip up a little bit to the sample text. You can kind of, zoom through. It'll basically be like a whole sentence where you can hear them speak Proto-Indo-European. It should be a little bit towards the end where they get to the sample text. Yeah, right there.
Sque. Grex hest. Son putlos. Grex sochnum ulinato. Tosio geotorm prext. Sochnus magnatod. Getortum regim welket. Hiageso de wom veronum. Upu rex de wom veronum sesolinu de wom yageto. Cliptimoi de ter verone. De was veronos de wescum tagwaht. Qui welsi. Sochnum welmi. Tood
Okay, you can stop right there.
Welket leukos de was veronos.
And so you can go to Hittite. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is Proto-Indo-European. Sounds. You can kind of hear some of the terms, like when they say mutter or prater. It sounds very similar to English, but that's Proto-Indo-European. Kind of interesting. And now we're going to do Hittite, the last one. And I actually really like the Hittite language. It sounds a lot like, if y'all are familiar with the language from Game of Thrones of the dragon people, the Targaryens. Hittite sounds a lot like that. So I'll let you play that.
Language. Nesili. Numbers and phrases. Asosiwat. Asosispant. Esmimoxus. As. Dan. Terias. Meyawes. Vocabulary. Asu. Asusani. Aska. Alel. Aliana. Alentaru. Alpa. Ammu. Anas. Analla. Ananutia. Antaran. Antuagas, Apataria, Arhari, Arkuai, Arma, Armania, Atas, Dankui, Dalugasti, Dalugaes, Dur, Egu, Es, Esgar, Essi, Esmi, Esten, Estsi,
All right, now you can go to the sample text.
Etri, Eku, Ekku, Ergas, Kaka, Halkini Marnin Sal, Eri, Sena, Sixt, Telepinusa, Arhayanis, Halkini Marnin Sal Hientien, Manitien, Ispiatarra Pedas, Gimri Wellui, Marmara Sandan Telepinusa Pipe, Marmariandan Nulista, Sara Seisan Halen Suhuais, Takuanatas Sanasa, Tameda Nilunipiansi, Nuatas Sanasa, Sarnin Kansi, Takwatas Sanas Mimay, Nansikan Tursanta, Nupit Hanas, Atas Masapan, Saniyaweti, Hulansan, Hulanun, Utuatsutne Kuit Patarais Nus Humanduspat, Hulanun.
All right, so that
Santa.
right there is Hittite. I like all the asan, like I like those A sounds and those S sounds. That's why I kind of like that language. But anyways, so that's Hittite. So you can flip back to my screen. I just wanted y'all to hear what it sounded like to make this presentation a little bit more alive. All right, so that's Hittite. So here is Hittite art and how they depicted themselves. So if you ever just type in Hittite stone art or whatever, these types of images will pop up. Just look at the features, look at the noses, the face, the eyes, the mouth, stuff like that. These are Hittites. So the Hittite phenotype has been described as being Armenoid, which is interesting. As I always bring up when it comes to the human phenotype, the short head and high skull type with fleshy features, a flat occiput, and hooked nose, often black-haired with light brown skin, common in mountain regions of West Asia, which is Anatolia, Turkey, especially in Armenia and Anatolia, was found in ancient Sumerians, Babylonians, Hittites, and Cretans around 4000 BCE. And so here is like artists' rendition of the Hittites. They will, these archaeologists will, go there and draw some of the pictures. And this is some of the pictures of Hittite statues that they drew. Look at the features, look at the nose, the eyes, the mouth, the hair, the body. These are Hittites. Very interesting, I would say. So the Armenoid. Other characteristics are hair color, dark brown to black, usually wavy to curly in form, roughly straight. Their head is broad, brachiocephalic or brachiocephalic. They are concentrated in Turkey, Syria, and Palestine, Iraq, Iran, and Balkan countries. Their typical representatives are ancient Hittites. And again, here are ancient Hittites. A bit of a closer image. Look at their features, very interesting features. The so-called Armenoid type has been defined by Hayden under the Euro-Asiatic brachiocephals as Anatolian, Armenian, dark hair, tawny, white skin, medium stature, very brachiocephalic, a prominent aquiline nose with a depressed tip and large wings is very characteristic. Scattered in Anatolia, Armenia, the ancient Hittites were typically members of this race. And so here are Hittites to the left, and to the right are, Armenians. And I can actually kind of see a very interesting resemblance to the Hittites and the Armenians if we were to look at like structures of the face and the skull and things of that nature. You can really see, like, for instance, the very triangle nature of the Hittite and the very triangular nature of the Armenian type. It's very interesting. And Holton defines the Armenoid type as follows: head, form, brachycephalic, hair color, black or brown, eye color, brown, skin color, olive or brunette whites, hair form, usually wavy, sometimes curly or straight, distribution, concentrated in the Near East, Asia Minor, Syria, Persia, common in Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, largely present in urban populations of Russia, Poland, Hungary, Austria, Czechoslovakia. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that one. The Yugoslavia, Germany, United States. Typical peoples: most Armenians, Turks, and Syrians, many Persians, and Ashkenazim Jews. So here is again the Hittites. To the left and to the right is an Armenian man. So it's very interesting. Those people kind of been there for a while. But anyways, genetically, we can prove that the Armenian region is a better fit for the origin of Proto-Indo-Europeans. Our analysis shows, this is from a study, as I always showed by the way, I never say this, but I never read the paper, the title of the paper, but I always have it in my videos. It's always either on the bottom, to the side, or on the top. So I'm just letting y'all know that. But our analysis shows that the ancient population of the Chalcolithic Iran, Chalcolithic Armenia, Bronze Age Armenia, and Chalcolithic Anatolia were all composed of the same ancestral components. By the way, Chalcolithic means Copper Age. It's about like 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, around those numbers. But anyways, the portion of the Armenians within global genetic diversity appears to mirror the geographical location of Turkey, which forms a bridge connecting Europe, the Near East, and the Caucasus. It is believed to have been the origin and or route of migrating Near Eastern farmers towards Europe during the Neolithic, and has probably also played a major role in the dispersal of Indo-European languages. So this paper is going to go a little bit deeper into that. A few years ago, in 2015, a major study published in Nature concluded that the Armenian Plateau hypothesis and the steep hypothesis gained in plausibility. The study was widely covered in the media because it has produced first ever solid evidence for a mass migration of ancient peoples from the Pontic Steppe, the so-called Yamnaya culture, into northwestern Europe, bringing with them their Indo-European language. What was less widely covered, however, is the discovery of the genetic connection between the Yamnaya and the ancient Armenians. The Armenian Plateau hypothesis gains in plausibility by the fact that we have discovered evidence of that mixture in the ancestry of the Yamnaya steppe pastoralists, including gene flow from the population of the Near East ancestry, for which Armenians today appear to be a reasonable surrogate. With all that being said, Armenia is probably the best location for the homeland of Proto-Indo-Europeans. From Armenia, they will go into Anatolia and the steppe, and finally the rest of Eurasia. So let's sort of break this down. So how the Armenian Plateau hypothesis gains in plausibility. The study discusses four main hypotheses of Indo-European language dispersals and the effects of the new findings on these hypotheses. While the results do not settle the debate about the location of the Proto-Indo-European homeland, they do increase the plausibility of some hypotheses and decrease the plausibility of others. The steppe hypothesis has increased plausibility because of the overwhelming evidence for the connection between the Yamnaya steppe people and the Cordwire people in Central and Northern Europe. The Anatolian hypothesis gains less plausibility for an explanation for the origin of all Indo-European languages in Europe, because it can no longer claim to correspond to the only major population transformation in European prehistory. The Balkan hypothesis also loses credibility on the ground that it does not account for the steppe migration and their overwhelmingly influenced the genetic makeup of the courtyard culture. And finally, the Armenian plateau hypothesis, just as the steppe hypothesis, gains in plausibility. The Armenian plateau hypothesis somewhat resembles the steppe hypothesis postulating a role in the steppe in the dispersal of languages into Europe, but places the homeland of Proto-Indo-European speakers south of the Caucasus, which is supported by the Near Eastern component discovered with the ancient DNA of the Yamnaya people. The Armenian plateau hypothesis gains in possibility by the fact that we have discovered evidence of admixture in the ancestry of Yamnaya steppe pastoralists, including gene flow from a population of the Near Eastern ancestry for which Armenians today appear to be a reasonable surrogate. So again, here are the two linguists that kind of saw this link, and here is their visual representation of the map of how it all would have spread. I think it's quite good, although I would also have a arrow pointing this way. But anyways, I'm not going to nitpick. But here's another representation again, perhaps a far better one. Shows them going into Anatolia, going into the steppe, and going into India, the Proto-Indo-European homeland. So, and again, one more time, here's another representation: the Armenian plateau, the Anatolian speakers, the Yamnaya, and then from the Yamnaya to the corded wire. So, with that being said, haplogroup J was likely one of many Y chromosomes that expanded with the Proto-Indo-Europeans. We saw this when it came to the Indo-Iranians. Remember, and I'll let Yeshua read this section while I get a sip of water.
All right. It says Upper Paleolithic genomes reveal deep roots of modern Eurasians. We extend the scope of European paleogenomics by sequencing the genomes of late Upper Paleolithic 13,300-year-old 1.4-fold coverage in Mesolithic 9,700-year-old males from Western Georgia in the Caucasus, in a late Upper Paleolithic 13,700-year-old male from Switzerland. While we detect late Paleolithic Mesolithic genomic continuity in both regions, we find that Caucasus hunter-gatherers belong to a distinct ancient clade that split from Western hunter-gatherers 45,000 years ago, shortly after the expansion of anatomically modern humans into Europe, and from the ancestors of Neolithic farmers 25,000 years ago, around the last glacial maximum. CHG genome significantly contributed to the Yamnaya steppe herders who migrated into Europe 3000 BC, supporting a formative Caucasus influence on this important early Bronze Age culture. CHG left their imprint on modern populations from the Caucasus and also Central and South Asia, possibly marking the arrival of Indo-Aryan languages.
Yes, so Caucasus hunter-gatherers are definitely part of that Indo-European spread. Again, as the paper said, with the Indo-Aryan languages, let's go a little bit deeper. So the split between Caucasus hunter-gatherer and both European farmers and Western hunter-gatherers ended during the early Bronze Age, when a major ancestral component linked to Caucasus hunter-gatherer was carried west by migrating herders from the Eurasian steppe. The foundation group of this systematic change was the Yamnaya, who we estimate to owe half of their ancestry to Caucasus hunter-gatherer linked sources. This source may be linked to the Hamok culture, which predated the Yamnaya and was likely further south, closer to the southern Caucasus. Though the Yamnaya and Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestral strand contributed to most modern European populations, especially in the northern part of the continent. Furthermore, we found that Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry was also carried east to become a major contributor to the ancestral northern Indian component found in the Indian subcontinent. Exactly when the eastward movement occurred is unknown, but is likely included major migration around the same time as their contribution to the Western European gene pool, and may be linked to the spread of Indo-European languages. And here's a paper that kind of goes into that. Within the Indian subcontinent, J2A peaks at frequencies of 15% to 25% around the Indo-Pakistani border of Panjshir to Gujarat in Sindh. Archaeological evidence of a mass migration from the Southern Caucasus to the Indus Valley is inclusive at present, but it cannot be excluded, as it has been proved now that large-scale Indo-European migrations took place during the same period from the Pontic-Caspian steppe to Europe and Central Asia. That's what we just read. There is no evidence, there is no reason to believe that J2A people from the Kro-Araxes culture could not have expanded in the same way westward toward Anatolia, Greece, and Italy, and eastward to Iran, Central Southern Asia, Pakistan, and India. So this right here is saying that, haplogroup J2 is likely part of that spread of Indo-European languages, specifically to India. And going further, it says, there is another cluster of J2A with a frequency approximating 15% in Bactria in southern Central Asia, in what is now northern Afghanistan, eastern Turkmenistan, southern Uzbekistan, and western Chagistan. The Indo-Aryans pursued their southward expansion, invading northern Pakistan and northwest India from 18,000 BCE to 15,000 BCE, and eventually bringing about the demise of the Indus Valley civilization around 13,000 BCE. There is a widespread variety of J2A branches found in South Asia. Some are over 10,000 years old, could have migrated from the west to Southwest Asia during the Neolithic, Chalcolithic, or early Bronze Age, based on the phylogeographies F3133 and M319, can be associated with the Kro-Araxes expansion. Y21500 has a TMRCA of 3,700 years and is also found in Russia, which suggests an Indo-Aryan origin, perhaps one of the J2A1 subclades assimilated by R1A invaders in Central Asia before conquering the Indian subcontinent. So haplogroup J, as well as haplogroup R, would have been part of that Indo-European, Indo-Aryan migration into India. So it's not just R we have to look at as being part of Proto-Indo-Europeans, it's also J, haplogroup J. It's very interesting. So by the way, here's a map of haplogroup J2 in the Indo-European language, and you actually can see a very interesting overlap with the haplogroup J in Indo-European, of course, spreading from Anatolia all the way to India. But perhaps another great example that haplogroup J is Proto-Indo-European in origin or related to Proto-Indo-Europeans is that the migration of Proto-Indo-European into the Balkans carrying Armenian DNA, as well as haplogroup J. Armenians, Minoans, and haplogroup J. So the research, this is another paper, by the way. The researchers further assessed data of 332 other ancient individuals from previous studies and 2,616 present-day individuals. The study revealed that the ancestors of the Greeks, the ancient Minoans and Messenians, were genetically related to one another and traced their origins from ancient people of Anatolia and the Armenian highlands. The Minoans and the Messenians, sampled from different sites in Crete and mainland Greece, were homogeneous, supporting the genetic coherency of these two groups. Differences between them were modest, viewed against their broad overall similarity to each other and to the southwestern Anatolians, sharing in both the local Anatolian Neolithic-like farmer ancestry and the Eastern Caucasus-related admixture. Especially during the Bronze Age, when the more advanced and creative civilizations were formed, the Armenian appears to be the strongest, promoting the authors of the study to call them bearers of innovation. Messenians can be only modeled as two-way admixture of Neolithic Anatolia and Chalcolithic or Middle Late Bronze Age Armenia. This suggests that Messenians could be a mixture of early Neolithic people represented by the Neolithic Anatolian population, and further input from the East related to populations of Armenia. Now, considering that the ancestral homeland of Armenians compasses a large portion of Eastern Anatolia, northern Iran, and even Syria, extending all the way beyond the borders of the modern Republic of Armenia, it is safe to assume that perhaps the Anatolia and other genes of the ancient Messenians equally trace their origin to the ancient Armenians, as they do to possess a great deal of genetic considered Anatolian by modern geneticists. In other words, it's entirely possible that the Anatolian side of the Messenians also came from ancient Armenians, simply because the genes known as Anatolian are also common with Armenians. This position is in fact supported by the study, as the author clarifies. Note that when modeling Messenians as a mixture of Anatolian Neolithic and Armenia-related populations, we infer that they have 56% through 63% Anatolian Neolithic-related ancestry, which is smaller than the 74 through 80% of such ancestry when modeling them without the later portions of source. This is due to the fact that populations from Armenia themselves have Anatolian Neolithic related ancestry. So the Anatolian gene aside, it is equally possible that even the Eastern hunter-gatherer and that the so-called Iranian related ancestries found within the predecessors of the Greeks came from ancient Armenia. However, populations of Armenia themselves have some Eastern hunter-gatherer and related ancestry. So it is possible that Messenians received both the Iranian-related and Eastern hunter-gatherer related ancestry from a population similar to that which inhabited Armenia. This scenario also makes the most sense. The study reads, to identify more approximate sources for the distinctive Eastern European / North Eurasian related ancestry in Messenians, we included later populations as candidate sources. And we could model Messenians as a mixture of the Anatolian Neolithic and the Chalcolithic to Bronze Age populations from Armenia. Populations from Armenia possess some ancestry related to Eastern European hunter-gatherers, so they or similar unsampled populations of West Eurasia could have contributed it to populations of the Aegean. This model makes geographical sense, since a population movement from the vagrancy of Armenia could have mixed with Anatolian Neolithic related farmers on the other side of the Aegean. Regardless of the various possibilities of how ancient Greeks received Armenian genetics, It is evident that ancient Armenian genetics played a role in the formation of the early Greek ethnos. Further support could be gained by analyzing ancient DNA samples from the many archaeological sites in historic Armenian territory in today's eastern Turkey, which the Turkish academia has yet to release. I'm actually gonna, let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this part. So dealing with the Y-DNA, the Eastern influence of the Bronze Age portions from Greece and Western Anatolia is supported by an analysis of their Y chromosomes. 4 out of 5 males belonging to Minoans, Messenians, and Southwestern Anatolians belong to haplogroup J, which was rare or non-existent in earlier populations of Greece and Western Anatolia, who were dominated by Y chromosome haplogroup G. And by the way, when it comes to the Armenian DNA project, they have about like 12% J1 and 23% J2. So this paper kind of goes a little bit deeper into that. So the ancient Messenians and Minoans were most closely related to each other, and they both got 3/4 of their DNA from early farmers who lived in Greece and southwestern Anatolia, which is now part of Turkey. The team reports today in Nature. Both cultures additionally inherited DNA from people from the Eastern Caucasus near today's modern-day Iran, suggesting an early migration of people from the East after the early farmers settled there, but more Messenians split from Minoans. Before Messenians split from Minoans. The Messenians did have an important difference. They had some DNA, 4% to 16%, from northern ancestors who came from Eastern Europe or Siberia. This suggests that a second wave of people from the Eurasian steppe came into mainland Greece by way of Eastern Europe or Armenia, but didn't reach Crete, says sloth lizards at a population geneticist at Harvard University who co-led the study. Not surprising, the Messenians and Minoans looked alike, both carrying genes for brown hair and brown eyes. Artists in both pictures painted dark-haired and dark-eyed people on frescoes and pottery who resembled each other. Although the two cultures spoke and wrote different languages, the Messenians were more muralistic, with art replicants with spears and art and images of war, whereas Minoan art showed few signs of warfare, says Lizards. Lizards says. Sorry. So when researchers compared the DNA of modern Greeks to that of ancient Messenians, they found a lot of genetic overlap. Modern Greeks share similar proportions of DNA from the same ancestral sources as Messenians, although they have inherited a little less DNA from ancient Anatolian farmers and a bit more DNA from later migrations to Greece. The results also show it is possible to get ancient DNA from a hot, dry landscape of the Eastern Mediterranean, Renfern says. He and others now have hope to getting DNA from groups such as the mysterious Hittites, who came from ancient Anatolia sometime during 2000 BCE, and who may have been the source of Caucasian ancestry in Messenians and early European languages in the region. Archaeologist Christine Christesian of the University of Gothenburg in Switzerland, who was not involved in the work, agrees. The results have now opened up the next chapter in genetic history of Western Asia, and that of the Bronze Age Mediterranean. So here's the actual study that goes deep into it. So let's look into it and see what they say. The origins of Bronze Age Minoan and Messenian cultures have puzzled archaeologists for more than a century. We assembled genome-wide data from 19 ancient individuals from Minoans, from Crete, Messenians from mainland Greece, and their eastern neighbors of southwestern Anatolia. We show that Minoans and Messenians were genetically similar, having at least 3/4 of their ancestry from the Neolithic farmers of western Anatolia and the Aegean, and most of the remainder from ancient populations like those of the Caucasus and Iran. However, the Messenians differ from Minoans and derive most of their ancestry from an ultimate source related to the hunter-gatherers of Eastern Europe and Siberia, introduced via the proximal source related to either the inhabitants of either the Eurasian steppe or Armenia. So we carried out principal component analysis, projecting ancient samples onto the two principal components, inferred that present-day West Eurasian populations that form two south-north parallel clines in Europe and the Near East along PC2. Minoans and Messenians are centrally positioned in the PCA figure 1b, framed to the left by ancient populations from mainland Europe and the Eurasian steppe, to the right from ancient populations from the Caucasus and West Eurasia, and to the bottom by early Middle Neolithic farmers from Europe and Anatolia. The Bronze Age individuals from Southwest Anatolia are also distinct intermediate between Anatolian and Levantine populations towards the bottom, and populations from Armenia, Iran, and the Caucasus towards the top. This analysis shows that all Bronze Age populations from the Aegean and Anatolia derive mostly 62 through 86% of their ancestry from an Anatolian-related population. However, they also had a component 9 through 32% of Eastern Caucasus/Iranian-related ancestry. It was previously shown that these types of ancestry was introduced into mainland Europe via the Bronze Age pastoralists from the Eurasian steppe, who were a mixture of Eastern European hunter-gatherers and populations from the Caucasus and Iran. The Eastern influence of the Bronze Age populations from Greece and Southwest Anatolia is also supported by an analysis of the Y chromosomes. 4 out of 5 males belonging to Minoans and Messenians and Southwestern Anatolians belong to haplogroup J, which was rare or non-existent in earlier populations from Greece and Western Anatolia, which was dominated by Y chromosome haplogroup G. Now keep this in mind. Haplogroup J was present in Caucasus hunter-gatherers and Mesolithic individual from Iran. Its spread westward may be accompanied by Eastern genome-wide influence. So, haplogroup J has high frequency in the Balkans, by the way. Outside the Caucasus, the highest frequencies of J2 are observed in Cyprus at 37% and Crete at 34%. Here's a map of specifically like J2b, which is seen quite heavily in the Minoan, Messenian region of the Balkans. And then here's just J2 in general, where it's very high in Anatolia, of course, in the Caucasus, as well as in the Balkans. Furthermore, the fact that we find ancient Minoan samples with Armenian DNA and haplogroup J entering Europe around the time of the Proto-Indo-European migration further proves that haplogroup J is likely Proto-Indo-European in origin. The Minoan civilization, here's a paper that goes into that. The Minoan civilization emerged from 2700 BCE and could have been found by colonialists from the Core-Araxes culture who would have brought bronze working with them. Modern Cretans have the highest percentage of G2A at 11%, J1 at 8.5%, J2A at 32%, and L plus T at 2.5% together. In Greece, and the highest percentage of J1 and J2 in all of Europe, for that matter. So Greece has the highest percentage of J. The three haplogroups associated with the Coriaxis culture. In fact, it seems that many branches of J2A may have expanded from the South Caucasus from the Chalcolithic onwards. The presence of these haplogroups and the admixtures of South Italy also certainly represent Coriaxis ancestry inherited from Minoan Greeks in the Aegean Islands. So here's J2 again, just showing that. And here's J1. And then again, here's the Proto-Indo-European homeland migration. We can kind of see how all this kind of lines together. With that being said, there's always, hold on. All right, with that being said, there's always been a belief that Armenians and Greeks share an ancient ancestor when it comes to their languages, that the two languages are actually connected. See, so the Armenio-Paragians are an hypothetical people of West Asia, specifically of Asia Minor and the Armenian highlands during the Bronze Age, and the Bronze Age collapse and its aftermath. They would be the common ancestors of both the Paragians and Proto-Armenians. In turn, the Armenio-Paragians would be the descendants of the Greco-Paragians, common ancestors of the Greeks, ancient Macedonians, Paragians, and also Armenians. Greco-Armenian or Helleno-Armenian is the hypothetical common ancestor of the Greek and the Armenian that postdates Proto-Indo-European. The hypothetical Proto-Greco-Armenian stage would need to date to the 3rd millennium BC and would be only barely different from either late Proto-Indo-European or Greco-Armenio-Iranian. Aryan. The term Armenio-Paragian is also used for a hypothetical language branch, which would include the languages spoken by the Paragians and the Armenians. It will be a branch of the Indo-European language family or a sub-branch of either the posited Greco-Armenio-Aryan or the Armenio-Aryan branches. There are two conflicting theories regarding the potential origins of the Armenio-Paragians. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus suggested that the Armenians were colonists from Paragia. Some modern scholars instead believe that the Proto-Armenio-Paragian population originated in eastern Anatolia and/or the Armenian highlands, from where the Paragians later migrated westward. According to some scholars, there is evidence of language borrowing. There is Armenianisms from the Proto-Armenian language into Hittite and Urartian. What would prove the presence of the Proto-Armenians in the Armenian highlands in the lands of ancient Armenia since at least the end of the 2nd millennium BC. One of the theories about the emergence of the Armenian in the region is the Paleo-Balkan speaking settlers related to Paragians, and the Mushki or the retroactively named Armenio-Paragians, who had already settled in the western parts of the region before the kingdom of Van was established in Urartu. According to the Encyclopedia of Indo-European Culture, the Armenians, according to Dekanoff, are then an amalgam of the Hurrian or Urartians, Luvians or Lithuanians, and the Proto-Armenian Mushki, who carried their Proto-Indo-European language eastwards across Anatolia. After arriving in its historical territory, Proto-Armenian would appear to have undergone massive influence by the languages it eventually replaced. Armenian phonology, for instance, appeared to have been greatly affected by the Urartian, which may suggest a long period of bilingualism. So here's the Paleo-Balkan languages. Here's the Armenians and the Paragians, and then all the Paleo-Balkan languages. This actually goes deeper into that even more with the language, but I think y'all kind of get the picture, so I'm going to sort of skip over this because this is just dealing with the languages, like I just said. But when it comes to the phenotype of the ancient Greeks, the ancient Greek islands such as Cyprus, we find sub-branches of the Armenoid phenotype, as well as when it comes to Armenia and the Anatolian Hittites. There's a commonality when it comes to their phenotype. As we said just earlier, the Messenians and the Minoans have dark hair and dark eyes, but when you go into the ancient like skulls of the people, it's typically Armenid. So let's actually get into that. So in the second and third periods of Al-Ashir, dated between 2,300 and 15,000 BC, the called, or 15,000 BC, and called the early Bronze Age balicocephalic skulls appeared, and these persisted through the period of the Hittite Empire for several centuries after 15,000 BC. Shortly before 2000 BC, a moderately balicocephalic type with tall stature entered Anatolia from the region yet to be determined, followed by a low vaulted hooked-nosed Mediterranean form, which we have named Cappadonian, and which is well known in present-day Near East. Troy II, the first real city, lasted through much of the third millennium, and was raised soon after 2000 BC. The skull of one young female from this level seems to represent the same balicocephalic type found at Al-Shir, with which it was probably contemporaneous, if craftsmen and immigrants were passing over the Barosmos at the time, carrying metal techniques in Central Europe. We may therefore suppose that some of the few roundheads found in the site in the Balkans, who were at least entering Europe from the east, came from this quarter. The hook-nosed Hittite element and the balicocephalic one in the late Cretan period, 70% of the 47 skulls were balicocephalic. The round-headed element was clearly on the increase during the Bronze Age, and it may have begun entering the island at any period between 3000 to 21,000 BC. Judging from the evidence of Asia Minor and Palestine, we may suppose that this took place near the late than the early date. The round-headed element at Cyprus, which appears identical with that from Al-Ashir, is numerous enough to warrant statistical composition. Pfister calls the skulls Armenoid, and they do resemble Iron Age and modern-day Armenians quite closely. The balicocephalic people who entered the Anatolian Eastern Mediterranean region in the later part of the third millennium BC were therefore an early form of Drinic, as one suspects were the so-called Armenoids who came into Mesopotamia at the same time. So the Drinics, a tall balicocephalic type intermediate pigmentation, usually planned occipital, and showing the facial and nasal prominence of Near Eastern peoples. The basic population of the whole Drenic Alpine highlands from Switzerland to Euphrates, also in the Carpathians and Caucasus, as well as Syria and Asia Minor. And the Armenoids, a similar brachiocephalic composite type with the same head form as the Drenics, but a larger face and nose. The pigmentation is also entirely brunette. The preliminary development of the beard and body eminent. The nose high rooted, convex, and the tip depressed, especially in advanced age. The difference between the Armenoid and the Drenic is that here it is the Iranian-Afghanoid race, which flourishes in Mediterranean elements, brachiocephalized by alpine mixture. The Nordic, a blonde, planoid, planoccipital brachiocephalus, frequently encountered in southern Germany and elsewhere in Central Europe, which is apparently in the Iron Age, the Nordic brachiocephalized by the Drenic mixture, and seems in most respects to take form in the blonde Drenic variant. So again, here's the Armenoid. I've read it quite enough, so I think y'all kind of know what the Armenoid type is. But here is the Armenid, which specifically deals with Armenians. I've read that many times. Y'all can pause it and read it. Here's the Anatoliad. I've also read that. Again, I'm just getting y'all the facial features of what these ancient peoples would look like. And here's the Drenic. I just read this one, so I'm going to actually read it from this source, though, because this is a new type. So tall, short-headed type with bony features, a flat occiput, and long nose, often brown-haired with fair to light brown skin, common in mountain regions of Central and Eastern Europe, especially the Balkans, developed during the Upper Paleolithic, probably in the Middle East, and may be linked to European bell pecker types of the Bronze Age. Some unite Drenids with the Armeniids and similar types to the Tyranid group. And here's the Drenid proper, Central Europe type, typical for the mountain and forest regions, extends to France, Western Greece, Bulgarian mountains, Italy, and other regions of Europe. Light brown skin, wavy, sometimes straight, dark brown hair, and brown eyes, hyper brachiocephalic. And here's the Norid, Central European type that closely resembles Drenids, except for lighter pigmentation, pale to fair skin, straight or wavy ash blonde, occasionally red hair, light mixed, often blue eyes or gray eyes, brachiocephalic. Again, these three types that I just said are in the Balkans, in the Greek regions. So we can see that that biologically, linguistically, phenotypically, that Proto-Indo-Europeans migrated from Armenia through Anatolia to the Balkans, and that one of the major haplogroups, Y-DNA haplogroups among these expansions was haplogroup J, which can prove that haplogroup J males were likely Indo-European speakers in origin, or among Indo-European speakers in origin. With that being said, seeing the link between Armenian, Greece, and Iran is very interesting because, as I said in the story, it does seem like that there was a mixture between like all these groups in the Southern Caucasus going into places like the Greek Isles. And linguistically, there is a belief that Armenian, Greek, and Iranian share a common linguistic family. This is called the Greco-Aryan, or the Greco-Armenio-Aryan, is a hypothetical clade within the Indo-European family that would be the ancestor of Greek, Armenian, and the Indo-Iranian languages. The Greco-Armeno-Aryan group supposedly branched off from a parent Indo-European stem by the mid 3rd millennium BC. In the context of the Kurgan hypothesis, Greco-Aryan is also known as late Proto-Indo-European or late Indo-European to suggest that Greco-Aryan forms a dialect group which corresponds to the latest stage of the linguistic unity in the Indo-European homeland in the early part of the 3rd millennium BC. By 25,000 BC, Proto-Greek and the Proto-Indo-Iranian had split, moving westward and eastward from the Pontic Steppe, respectively. If Greco-Aryan is a valid group, Grassmann's law may have a common origin in the Greek and Sanskrit. Iranians themselves have a high amount of haplogroup J, by the way. Furthermore, Iran is one of the origins for haplogroup J, and the Iranian language is Indo-European. I've actually debated someone on this. Someone had thought Iranian is Semitic language, but no, Iranian is Indo-European. Iranian peoples, or the Iranic peoples, are a diverse Indo-European ethno-linguistic group identified by their use of the Iranian languages and other cultural similarities. The Proto-Iranians are believed to have emerged as a split branch of Indo-Iranians in Central Asia in the mid-2nd millennium BC. The ancient Iranians who emerged after the 1st millennium BC included the Alans, Barkarians, the Medes, the Parthians, Persians. I had someone argue with me about the Persians being Semitic in origin. It's like, no, they're Indo-Europeans. The Sacs, the Samaritans, the Scythians, and probably Cimmerians, among other Iranian-speaking peoples of Western Asia, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe and the Eastern Steppe. Modern Iranian peoples include the Baloch, the Kurds, the Lurs, people like the Persians, again, today's Iranians, and groups like that. I'm not going to name all of them. But anyways, J2-M172 is the most common haplogroup in Iran at 23%, almost exclusively represented by J2A-M4110, subclad at 93%, and other major subclad being J2B-M12. Apart from Iranians, J2 is common in Arabs, Mediterranean, and Balkan peoples. We just talked about the Balkans, by the way, such as Greeks and Albanians and Italians and Macedonians and Bulgarians and Turks. And in the Caucasus, we talked extensively about them as well. Among Armenians and Georgians, Chechens, English, northeastern Turkey, northwestern Iran, Kurds, Persians, whilst its frequency drops suddenly from Afghanistan and Pakistan and northern India. In Europe, J2 is more common in the southern Greece and southern Italy. Again, we just talked about that. Whilst J2-M112 is common among Thracia, Macedonia, central and northern Italy. Thus, J2A and its subclade within have a wide distribution from Italy to India. And again, we just talked about that. Whilst J2B is mostly confined to the Balkans and Italy. Haplogroup J is prominent in Iran with both its subclades J2-M172 and J1-M267 are observed. Its highest frequency are registered in the populations located to the southwestern shores of the Caspian Sea along the Zagros mountain range. Exceptionally high in the frequency observed in the Balochi and Sistan Balkistan, in agreement with their likely Caspian Sea origin. So again, I'm just going to quickly go over how Iranian is Indo-European. So first you have Proto-Indo-European. From Proto-Indo-European comes Proto-Indo-Iranian. And by the way, down here it even talks about Proto-Indo-Iranian has been considered to form a subgroup along the Greek, Armenian, and Peruvian on the basis of the striking similarities in the morphological structure. So that's interesting because we just talked about the genetics with Greeks, Armenians, and Iranians. But from Proto-Indo-Iranian comes Proto-Indo-Aryan. It descends from Proto-Indo-Iranian, which is mostly in India. Then you have the Indo-Iranian language. And from Indo-Iranian, you get the Proto-Iranian, which again, people who would have spoke that would have been people like the Persians. And then from Proto-Iranian, you get Indo-Iranian. And then from Indo-Iranian, you get the Iranian languages today and the Iranian people. Iranians are Indo-Europeans. I consider them to be the Near Eastern or the Middle Eastern branch of Indo-Europeans. The Middle East was not just settled by Semitic people. Semitic people were not the only people living in the Middle East. You had Indo-Europeans. So here is the Indo-Iranian phenotype. I think I've read this many times before, but just to briefly go over, this phenotype is seen in Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, northern India because of the Aryan migration. And basically it is a light to medium brown skin tone with straight hair or wavy hair. And it's often brown or black haired. And then here is the northern Indian type. Of course, this type is seen in Pakistan and northwestern India due to the ancient Indo-Iranian migration from the north. This type, like the Iranian type, is light to medium brown skin tone with straight or wavy black or brown hair. Genetically, we can see a link through haplogroup J and Indo-European languages that stretch from Greece to Armenia, Iran, and even India. This is basically what I'm trying to get across this whole presentation. You kind of see it with haplogroup J. This stretch from the Greek Isles to Armenia, Iran, and India. Sorry, bit of a brain fart. But here's also the linguistic representation of this as well. It's very interesting how J2 perfectly overlaps Indo-European. And again, we went over how the Caucasus hunter-gatherers contributed to the spread of Indo-European languages. So, and how, Caucasus hunter-gatherers, the Georgian Caucasus hunter-gatherers have haplogroup J. I'm going through this very quickly because I went through this in other presentations, but of course you can pause this. If this is your first time, you can read it. And of course, we went over how ancient Greek populations basically had Caucasian and Iranian DNA in them, and Anatolian DNA, as well as haplogroup J. And of course, it went over how high haplogroup J is found not only in the Minoans, but also modern Greek populations. And that Caucasus hunter-gatherers contributed to the Indo-Iranian spread of languages as well. And how these J markers also migrated into India during the Indo-Aryan migration. Kind of summing everything up. And here's just, again, a visual representation of that spread, of that migration, both of language and of DNA. With all that being said, Armenia, the Southern Caucasus, being in the homeland of Proto-Indo-Europeans and haplogroup J originating in Anatolia, Armenia, and Iran, is proof that haplogroup J would have been among the Proto-Indo-European population. They would have migrated together, going as far west as Greece to as far east as India. But the most important factor is to remember that the Proto-Indo-European homeland overlaps with Y-DNA haplogroup J. The most likely location of the population that first spoke an Indo-European language, which south of the Caucasus Mountains, perhaps in present-day Iran or Armenia, because ancient DNA from people who lived there matches what we would expect for a source population, both for the Yamnaya and for ancient Anatolians. Again, showing you that migration. And remember, when it comes to haplogroup J, the J1A-Z1A-1B-Z18375 branch is found overwhelmingly among ancient and modern populations of the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, Iran, and Anatolia. They overlap each other. There is one final point that could indeed prove that haplogroup J is Proto-Indo-European in origin. But now is the time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions that pertains to the presentation, ask them. Because remember, we have one more video for PIE, Proto-Indo-European, and haplogroup J. One more video coming up next, which is tomorrow. But yeah, we can ask questions.
All right. Anybody that's in the chat that wants to participate and ask a question for today's presentation, right now is the time to do so. So waiting on questions. Great presentation, by the way. And
Thank you.
there was a point you brought up that was a very poignant point, which was brought up on the channel before. Ancient Grecians would have had haplogroup J, and we know the Bible deems the ancient Grecians as Javan.
Yep.
So
Indo-European people, or they would be an Indo-European people.
Right. So yeah, you can't be Japhet and Shem at the same time. You can only have one father. And if we're following the biblical narrative as a reflection or a record of human migration and humanity as a whole, then we have to take into account these people would have been considered Javan, children of Japhet. And I think the slide that you pulled said like 4 out of 5 men had haplogroup J.
Yes, it says right here, the Eastern influence in the Bronze Age population from Greece and in the southwestern Anatolia is also supported by an analysis of their Y chromosomes. 4 out of 5 males belonging to Minoans, Messenians, and southwestern Anatolians belong to haplogroup J. And then right here it says haplogroup J was present in Caucasus hunter-gatherers and a Mesolithic individual in Iran, and it spread westward, may have accompanied the Eastern genome-wide influence. And of course, up here it talks about basically the autosomal DNA. Ancient Greeks had Anatolian and Caucasian/Iranian DNA in them. So ancient Greeks are basically like an Anatolian, Caucasian, Iranian people, and they did have J among them.
Right. And this is like an example of using empirical science to, back the claim, instead of just making the claim become the evidence. So yeah, this is awesome information, especially about the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, because those would be, like I said, the early Greek inhabitants would be Javan according to the biblical narrative. Therefore, you can deduce that these would be your Japhites.
Yes. And even if you were to go by skulls, anthropologists such as Carlton Kuhn even sees that, when it comes to the spread of the particular skull type, the Armenoid skull type, they see it spreading from the Armenian highlands into Anatolia with the Hittites, and then into the Balkans with the Greeks. And the Armenian type, this type is definitely, in my opinion, not Semitic. It's more of a Near Eastern version of the Indo-Europeans, because Indo-Europeans weren't just in Europe. We got to remember, Indo-Europeans were also in the Middle East. Japhites were also in the Middle East.
Right. And even in India with the Sanskrit and the Persian, which you did show in your presentation, the Indo-European map, it included the old Persian as being Indo-European.
Yes. Proto-Indo-European or Proto-Indo-Aryan. Again, that would be like your Japhites. These are European speakers, And they too, not only do they, of course, have an Indo-European language, but they also have, Haplogroup J markers at very high percentages. And we can see that they are part of that migration of J people into the region of modern day India. And they would have, of course, traveled with R markers. But my point is to show that J is among Proto-Indo-Europeans in ancient times. And you do see a very interesting overlap between Indo-European languages and J.
Right. So what you're showing is pretty much damning, if I may say, to the people on the other side of the aisle that are trying to propagate haplogroup J as a Shemitic marker, because they don't have anything to do with Semitic languages, Afro-Asiatic languages, and phenotypically, even making the argument phenotypically, these people would not even have a relation to early Semites, Proto-Semites.
Right. Yeah, phenotypically, these people would have originally had more of a Armenoid caste. And when they went into places like the Balkans, of course, it would shift a little bit, but it would still be part of that Armenoid caste. And even when they went to India, they would have this type of caste of a tanned to white skin tone with dark hair, dark eyes. And it's kind of interesting because today we consider these phenotypes to be Semitic, but really these phenotypes originate with Proto-Indo-Europeans. Like a lot of people think Iranians are Semitic, but they're not. They're Indo-European. There are a Near Eastern branch of European peoples.
Right. And you know what's if we look, and I'm believing it's Iran, right? The Medes would have had sprung from Iran as well, right?
Yes, they would have. Yes.
And we know the Medes would also be a son, or Madai would be a son of Japan. Japhet.
Right. I'm actually going to touch on that soon. I'm going to get a little bit deeper into the Bible on my next presentation. I know I've been dealing mostly with language and DNA. I'm going to try to go more biblical for my next presentation.
Yeah. Like I said, great presentation. And like I said, the people that we got an actual caller. Someone called in.
Nice. Wait, like called in or they're joining?
Well, joined the link. Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say.
All right, Rashun, you're on the live. Brother Rashun.
Hello, Rashun. Rashun.
Shalom. Can y'all hear me?
Shalom.
Yes. Shalom.
All right. Yeah, man. I like the presentation. It seems like with all the information, it is going with the biblical narrative. Far as how you look in the book of Jasher, it shows how the Medes, how they settled in that region. That you was talking about, like around Iran, around Georgia, whatever. They settled in that region. He didn't want to stay in his own land, so he settled in Shem's land. And then you see how also, because you brought up like a Hittite connection between them and the Armenians, right?
Yes, I did. I did.
All right, and I was looking also, we see in the book of Jasher, in that same chapter, how this was the late Chalcolithic period, and somewhere around the beginning or mid Bronze Age, between those periods, we see that Canaan as well stayed in those lands, because the rest of everybody else went to their own lands except Canaan and the Medes. So we got some Hamites and we got Japhetic people in those lands. So my question to you is, and I know you're not talking about it, or at least not right now, but what haplogroup can we contribute to the Hittites or to any of the Canaanite tribes that was in their land? Because they were dominating at one point in time in history within those areas.
Great question. So I actually have a Who Are the Canaanites presentation. I have all the slides ready, but I'm sorry, brother. You'll have to wait for that presentation.
Okay.
But I am going to touch deeper on the Hittites later on in these videos on the Shoob's channel for these last few days. So don't worry, I'll touch on them some more. But for the who are the Canaanites, I'm sorry, man, you have to wait on that. I have close friends even asking me that. So
Okay.
That's all them know.
Okay. Well, with J and R, and I know both of them are claiming to be descendants of Canaanites. And with this information that you brought out, you know, it's evident that we know they migrated in from the north. But my thing is this: with them claiming that to be Canaanites, have anyone came out physically and physically, but have anyone spoken out against their claim? Are you familiar with anyone coming against that? Because you know they're putting it in the what you call that, National Geographic. Yeah, they're printing this out in different papers, scientific papers, and things of that nature, trying to say the haplogroup J and R are Canaanites.
Yeah, I'll definitely touch on Jay. I'll touch on Canaan, and I'll touch on that paper in the future.
Okay.
It's actually a really good paper, and I'll explain why then. But there is definitely a deep understanding that we have to have of ancient Near East civilizations, as well as literature, the way that they say who is a Canaanite when it comes to the Hebrew. We got to go real deep into the Hebrew language and understanding the various cultures and peoples in the land of Canaan. And I can't do that right here. I'll do that when I get to my Canaanite video. But I will say this: when you find out who the Canaanites are in modern day and in ancient times, you will be shocked. And I will definitely be able to explain it in vivid detail.
Okay. All right, brother. Shalom, y'all.
Oh, shalom. Thank you for the questions.
Hey, I want to say this. The Ivri of Israel, Hebrew of Israel, he's going to be doing his own thing on his own channel. So I want you brothers that are watching to stop what you're doing right now and go to the Hebrew of Israel on YouTube and subscribe, because eventually he's going to go and migrate to his own channel and start to produce his information there. And I want you guys to give him the love and support that you give him here. Okay, so he's actually, you know, getting ready to make that transition. So if you guys love and support this brother's work, you're going to have to go to the source, which the source for his channel is the Hebrew of Israel. And that's where he's going to be pumping out more information, you know, in regards to haplogroups, to genes, demography, migratory patterns, as it regards to biblical peoples and narratives. So yeah, Hebrew of Israel on YouTube.
Yes, and it's not like I'll be leaving Yeshub's channel forever. I'll pop up every now and then if he does a live stream, or even if I have a presentation I might want to share with you guys on his channel. You know, I'll still be coming around. I just gotta at some point focus on my own channel. I have so many videos on different people's channels, but literally nothing on my own channel. So I gotta start pumping out some content. But yes, I will. I do have a channel, the Hebrew of Israel. I'm also going to appear. I'm going to do my best to try to appear on people like, you know, Orthodox More and Divine Prospects channel. But yes. But any more questions that people have?
I can look through the comments. It doesn't look like we had too many questions. I don't think we had any questions, to be honest. Let me see.
Well, if they don't have any more questions, I can probably just jump on Clubhouse for a minute and we can chat it up there and for about an hour, and then I gotta get off and start working on the bonus content. Wait, what is this? A Sephardic Jew told me there is no Israelite haplogroup because if you are a proselyte, You are just as much Israel as the original ones. How do you feel about that? Okay, so this is more like the spiritual Israel type thing, but for the Jewish version of it. All right, so I personally do believe that if someone is genuinely following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, that they are the seed of Abraham. Specifically, that is a verse, the seed of Abraham. It doesn't necessarily say the seed of Israel, but you are the seed of Abraham. I do believe that there is a genetic haplogroup for the Israelites, though. They were a real people. They are not a myth. They're not a myth like, the people of I don't know, of Asgard in Norse mythology. That these aren't a mythical people. The Israelites were very much a real people. So I do believe that they had a real genetic haplogroup. But yeah, I take it twofold. You do have such thing as a spiritual seed of Abraham, but there is still definitely a real Israelite people with a real Y-DNA haplogroup. Hopefully that answered your question. So yeah, you go ahead.
I was about to say, I was going to second that notion. It's funny how people try to disregard when you say there is no Israelite haplogroup. You're saying the Israelites never existed, because haplogroup just means a group of people that share a common ancestor. When you say there's no haplogroup, then you're saying there was no group of people, physical group of people named Israel that had a common ancestry. And we know if we're looking at the biblical narrative as a record of human history, then that can't be true. That they would have to be a real people with blood, with DNA, with Y chromosomes and X chromosomes. So, I see you, Sister. I see you. Sorry if I haven't got back to you, but I'm getting over a sickness. So I am definitely looking forward to being on your channel. So I will be in touch soon. Shalom, sister. But in regards to that last point about the proselytization, once you start doing stuff like that, we understand what a proselyte is. Proselyte is someone that converts into the traditions and the cultic practices of the Jews or the Israelites or a people, period. Like if you want to go and join, Shintoism, okay, you can become a proselyte of Shintoism. But here's the thing, that doesn't make you a part of the original people genetically or biologically just because you mimic or adopt the culture of those people. And I think people are starting to, I blame medieval Christendom for it, because that, like you said, that replacement theology is in the mind.
Israel thing.
Yeah. Just because there's no such thing as replacement theology. You cannot replace a people. That doesn't make sense scientifically and biologically. You don't just replace a people. You just can't say, well, now I'm your ancestors. No, that's not how it works. What you did was you adopted a foreign culture that was not yours or to begin with, or your ancestors, and you.
I'll be back in a minute. Give me a quick second. I'll let you finish talking, but I'll be back.
Okay. To join once you join the customs of another people does not mean you magically start sharing ancestors with those people. That's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo that was started by modern day Christians. It's not something that's biologically or scientifically sound. So, in regards to what my brother Ramal Yahoo said, that brother, just because you become a proselyte, and we're not against proselytes, proselytes are a part of Jewish history. So we always had people that were from outside of our ancestry that were becoming practitioners of the faith and the traditions and the cultic practices of the Hebrews. A great example of that is First Chronicles, I believe the 4th or the 2nd chapter, where you had an Egyptian pretty much marry into the tribe of Judah. This Egyptian would have adopted the culture. The book of Leviticus 19 says, treat the foreigner amongst you as a native born. This person will have adopted the culture, kept the customs. That doesn't mean that they magically become your people. Again, if you become a proselyte of Shintoism, you don't magically become East Asian. That's just not how it works. Rashu Washa, exactly. Replace a people and turn the people in their culture and heritage into a religion. And that's exactly what's been going on, man. And I'm going to tell you who did that first. The people that did that first was these early Christians that were turning and divorcing from Jewish traditions. Starting to adopt Easter, turning Sunday into the day of reverence, so on and so forth. And, beginning to truncate the foundations and the roots of early Christianity in that regard. So, yeah, they pretty much done that. No, what we're focusing on is, who are these people? Can we identify these people genetically? Can we build a model to, pretty much do abductive reasoning and build the strongest case for who could be Israel? And people don't like that. So now they want to bring up, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, well, if you're a proselyte, you're just as much as a Jew as anybody else. Well, you're speaking from a religious standpoint. We're speaking from an ancestry standpoint and a biological standpoint. It's two different things. And this is why most of the people that are critics of the work that we do here are people that are coming from a dogmatic, doctrinaire standpoint and not a scientific, empirical standpoint. Like the interactions we just had with Faithful to Gog, and his, he had to go reach out to 2 other people. It's because this brother doesn't have a leg to stand on, empirically. As you start making up stuff and trying to invoke things that don't make any sense, trying to say that Noah is haplogroup J and all his children would be haplogroup J, you can't reconcile that with the biblical narrative, because Noah's children would have to represent all haplogroups and all people if the biblical narrative is true, which we support here on the channel, the biblical narrative of Noah's children repopulating the earth after a bottleneck. No, Abu hasn't showed up yet, man. We know he's never going to show face on here. But yeah, if you guys missed the Haplogroup J presentation by Avery, very good presentation, and he was bringing forth some strong, poignant points to point out who Haplogroup J would be. And one that stood out to me, as I brought out earlier, is that the J marker has an early presence, a Bronze Age presence in Greece. And we know, according to the Bible, Greece is equated to Javan. And even in secular texts, worldly texts, if you will, Ionia is Javan. And Ionia is, dealing with Greece. And we know Greece is and Javan are the sons of Japhet. And before the J markers, you had the G2A, haplogroup G2A. They would be the sons of Japhet as well. So we can see it. We can see patterns and evidence, of who Japhet would be. All of the descendants of FM89, and it's lining up with the historical text. He broke it down through the linguistic evidence as well. They would speak a phylum of Proto-Indo-European, which he gave an overlay map where J2 actually overlays with the spread of Indo-European. These people are not Afro-Asiatic speakers. These people are initially Indo-Europeans. And that's why it's good that we look at the empirical evidence to frame our claims, because once you look at it, you can see who started Afro-Asiatic, the Afro-Asiatic language group, as was brought out before. If you haven't watched Avery's series on the origin of the Semites, 5-part series, it's a playlist on my channel. You can watch all 5 parts. He breaks it down. EP2, haplogroup E, are the progenitors of the Afro-Asiatic language group. And then once you start seeing an introgression of haplogroup J into the Levant, they start to adopt and absorb that language. But initially, they would have been a part of the PIE groups or Proto-Indo-European groups. So I believe that was a very poignant point that our brother Ivory brought tonight in regards to who Haplogroup J is. Because remember, we want to try to identify these people and who they are according to the biblical narrative, as it relates to being a record of human, human record. So yeah, great job again, Ivory. And like I said, you guys need to support Ivory on his own channel. Again, it's the Hebrew of Israel on YouTube. I see some people saying they're having a hard time finding it, so I'll just throw it up on the screen.
Yeah, you can probably one way you can probably find it is type in the Hebrew of Israel on YouTube, and then there's a tab you can push, and you can specifically find like the length of the video, the time, the channel. I would recommend that you push the channel. It's maybe you should. Can you go to YouTube real quick? Maybe I can kind of show them another avenue of finding it.
Yeah,
I don't have any content posted, but here's one way you can find my channel. All right, so go to the go down a little bit. All right, hold on. Actually, let me do it on my one as well. So when you go to when you type that in, yeah, that's it.
channel.
Yeah, then channel. Yeah. So then scroll down, and you're gonna see my face. Well, not my face, but my profile picture.
Man, we gotta get you some videos, man. So you're listed first.
Yeah, I thought it would be the first. Let me see.
Hebrew of Israel.
It's weird. Let me actually just put it into the. Can I put it into the chat? I don't know.
You should be able to. And also I'm going to list you under my channel too. I'm gonna work on that off stream, and that way people can just go to my channel and click on your channel.
Right, that is another way. All right, I'm gonna put in the chat. Let me highlight this.
Yeah, that's bizarre, man. I thought it would be,
me too. I thought it would be there, but it's not. I'm gonna put it in the private chat, and I'm gonna put it in the main chat just in case it doesn't work. Let me see here. Let me go to Genesis 49. And what's that? To Genesis 49. Let me mute that. All right, so I put in the private chat, but see if it's also in the main chat as well. Did it work? Did the link work or what?
not in the main chat. Let me try.
Oh, it didn't work in the private chat?
That's in the private chat, but I just put it in the main chat. Let me check my phone and see if it's visible.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I was just reiterating that point about the early Grecians having that J marker there as well.
Yep. They would have.
Having that J. Yep. So it's in the link. Yep. All right. So everybody click that link and subscribe to his channel, because like I said, he's going to start exclusively uploading his footage there. All right. So
yeah, if I'm going to make a video on who are the Israelites, I'll go into DNA. I'll go into phenotype, of course. And of course, I'll go with the biblical narrative of who they are. And I'll go into who are the Canaanites. And again, I'll go into genetics, phenotype, stuff like that. and try to work my way from ancient Israel to their descendants today. Who are the descendants of the ancient Israelites? They're interesting jigsaw puzzle. They're interesting, phenomenon that everyone wants to figure out. You have tons of people claiming to be Israel, Filipinos, British, Indians, all types of people. Who are these people today? And I'll get into that. Get into that on my channel. And like I said, I can even bring it to YouTube's channel too. I would like for my videos to sort of be spread throughout YouTube so that just in case I ever get canceled or whatever, my content isn't in more than just one place.
Yeah, I'm trying to scour the chat. I'm sure there's no more questions.
Well, there isn't. Let me look too.
I mean, would you consider this a question or a statement? I kind of get confused sometimes looking at these statements.
Yeah, Canaanites, like the Hittites and the Amorites, were very distinct phenotypically from the Habaru, Hebrews, former slaves from Egypt that conquered and displaced the Canaanites in the Levant. All right, so I will actually slightly disagree with this statement. The Canaanites, like the Hittites, Amorites, are very distinct phenotypically. Oh, wait, no, you said from the Habaru. Okay, I agree with that. Yes, the Hittites and Amorites are distinct from the Habaru. But Hittites, Amorites, interestingly, did look a bit similar. But yes, they are distinct from the Habaru people. But again, that Habaru, we got to also be careful about, because Habaru is just a general name for a bandit in the region of the Levant. Not all Habaru are Hebrews, but some Hebrews are Habaru, is the way I say it.
Now, this next statement, I don't know why they posted this, but
Native Americans and Aztecs had type O negative blood, ... without anti-genes or antibodies. What? Nobody will ever come close or ever duplicate that blood. Ever? Sure, man. All right.
I know, like, what was I didn't, huh? Yeah, now that's pretty much what the chat was saying. Everybody else is like shalom. Yeah, Ruth saying shalom.
Shalom, everyone. Shalom.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no questions. Let me just double check.
Well, I have another video coming out tomorrow. So tomorrow in the daytime and perhaps even tomorrow at night. 2 videos in one day. So, I mean, if it's cool with Shu, if he wants to do 2 in one day, it might be a lot, but I have to see how I feel by the end of the day. Still got homework, so we'll see. We'll see if I'll do 2 in one day or just do 1.
I'm looking, man. I don't see. I guess that's it. I guess we can just direct them to Clubhouse.
Yeah, I'll start the room right now then.
All right, shalom, everybody. Shalom, Chemo. I see you. Shalom, Sister E. We're going to talk. I see about getting on your channel. Shalom to Elkine Barlow. Shalom to Rashun. We appreciate you for being a part of the channel today. Shalom to Arya. Shalom, Jeremiah. I see you, brother. Shalom, Shari. Shalom to everybody, man, that came through. 7, shalom to you, brother. Yahia, Ramal Yahoo. And, shalom, Kedrick, Bama, Thoroughbred. Shalom to everybody, man.
Yeah, shalom.
All right, with that, we out.
Big business.
RSK, let it play, boy.
When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. I wake up and say me a prayer. Brush my teeth, babe, then I throw on some threads. Wash my face, grab a cup, hold me some young. Put on my backpack, then I'm off to the bread. I eat these devils for breakfast, gotta be careful. Whole lot of blood being shed in the streets. World is so wicked, I weep for the living. I drop a free church for the dead. All my white friends in my pocket, or either they loading onto this black card that I swipe. Say every time that I drop it, the verses be hitting more harder than problems of life. Rich, I collected 2 pennies from every person that willingly gave me advice. Being afraid can't exist in my spirit. I'm fearing no man but the Father in Christ. I put in work with the brothers. We stood on them corners from 10 to like 9 the same night, teaching our people the gospel, equipped with a camera, some posters, some speakers, and mic. Every time that I see mama, she telling me, son, you gotta walk in the light. Christ, the bread of heaven, keep feeding my spirit, and I want a low, not a slide. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers.
When I tell you I'm an Israelite, tribe of Judah, don't you take it personal. Bleed the blood on these demons, we purging them. Don't entertain Jezebels, we be curving them. Ayy, I got a ribbon, she virtuous. In person, this blue life ain't virtual. I can't forget when I heard the truth. I got cut with that word, it got surgical. Conviction can lead to repentance. I pray these verses encourage you. We repented, now we on the vertical. Judah rising, see Isaiah 32. Big business, nothing minuscule. I picked up that pen back in middle school. Guard your light and take heed who you listen to. Watch your mouth and your ears and your vision too. Hashatan and Shalkani won't finish you. In Mortal Kombat, this war is not physical. Gird your loins up and follow the general. Messiah is coming, that's scriptural. You gotta starve your flesh. The real war ain't even started yet. This look like a setup for a second exodus. I'm trying to be where the water at. Let's get it.
When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. It's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers.